want to say thank y'all for hanging in there with a little bit of technical difficulties. But now let's get going. So if you see up there at the top, you see special forces. When you're doing the special teams, when you're talking about a unit and different units, you got to have what are you setting it on? What is your culture? What are you building it on? I had the privilege to have a teammate in college that once we were done playing ball, he got into special forces. And then I also have a family friend that's in special forces. And one of the common themes that they always talked about was how when they went on missions and when they had to execute the mission or the plan or the task at hand, it was multiple services. It wasn't just special forces. It was Navy, it was Air Force, it was Army. And so they had to come to be on the same page to execute that task. And so when you look and you take a dive deep into special teams, you're pulling guys from what? Offense, defense, and you have your specialties guys. You got a tight end, you got a linebacker, you got a running back, you got receivers. They got to be able to gel together to execute at a high level on special teams. And those guys in special forces do what they do, so we're allowed to coach these young men up on the football field. So when you look at that, it goes hand in hand. It fits. That's why you hear me talk about HU Special Forces. And what we're about in HU Special Forces is we're going to play with speed, we're going to play with violence, we're going to play hard, and you're going to play together. Speed, violence, hard, and together. You got to have those be a part of the HU Special Forces. The philosophy. I'm just keep it real with you. I'm not going to sit there and scheme up all these different types of schematics where you're like, oh, that's fancy. But we're going to keep it simple. We're going to keep it sound. And then we're going to have basic fundamentals. And we're going to execute at a high level. You see KISS up there. It's keep it simple and sound. It's simple, just like that. We're going to execute at a high level. We're going to have guys that are going to be selfless. They're going to do their job. You might not get the ball, but you got to be able to block somebody. You got to be able to set up the block to spring that returner for that run. You got to be able to take on the double team on the kickoff so the next guy can come in there and make that play. So we're going to have a lot of guys that are going to be selfish up there. Then an explosion. Think about it. That play is 5 to 12 seconds. It's 5 to 12 seconds on the special teams play. So we tell those guys they got to be able to be explosive in that time. And then the next part is relentless. If you're fighting a double team, and we're going to show how we execute on film, how to get off a double team, you got to have a relentless effort. You can't come to me in silence like, Coach, he ran past me, or Coach, I couldn't get to the ball carrier because I had two guys blocking me. You got to have that relentless effort on these units. And then the never give up attitude. Never give up attitude right there. We got to establish the winning edge. A lot of guys in here, I bet you can go look back at some games, and it was neck and neck, right? It's neck and neck. Then you go look at that hidden yardage in the special teams, and that's what cost the game. Offense was doing well, defense was doing well, but then you go look at, might have been on a kickoff where the returner was averaging 30 yards, 32 yards on the return. The hidden yardage, where they set the offense up to keep moving and being successful for them. So that's where we got to have that never give up attitude and have that winning edge, be able to set the offense or defense up to be successful. The special forces we must set the tempo. Must set the tempo and the attitude. Got to have it. Must set the tempo and the attitude. We must control the field position. Simple as that. We must control what we're going to do on the field position. Control the momentum. If you look back, it's 25 to 30 plays on average, around 5 seconds per play in a game. Must control the momentum. We all know when we get a big return, offense gets hyped. We all know if we get a block punt, everybody's hyped. We all know that momentum swings, and special teams has a big part of that. We must score and set up a score. Simple as that. We must score and set up a score. And always cover and tackle well. Always cover and tackle well. Going into the philosophy. on our kickoff coverage. I'm going in to dive deep into what we did this year on kickoff. So the things you see up here is relentless effort. You must be willing to run downfield with some aggression. I always tell the guys, be the hammer, not the nail. Be the hammer, not the nail. We're going to go into some clips. You're going to see we had a lot of hammers this year. We had a whole lot of hammers this year. Then you're going to have to be aggressive and disciplined. So there's a difference. That's why I have your aggressiveness and discipline, because you can be aggressive and going all crazy, and then you get outside your coverage lane, and all of a sudden we get gashed. So you got to be able to be aggressive, but then disciplined to stay in your coverage lane so you can execute at a high level. And then you got to have a good kicker. You got to have a kicker that's effective. But one thing I will say, and you got to understand, you're going to see on some of these clips that our kicker didn't place the ball where we wanted it to be placed, but that's where it comes in with speed. That's where it comes in with playing hard. That's where it comes in playing together. And that's where it comes in being violent. So now that covers up if the kicker didn't place the ball where it's supposed to be placed at. So you'll see that, but you got to have an effective kicker. We're going to have 3 drills. We're going to have the triangle pursuit. We're going to have down the line. We're going to have box and fit. That's it. We're going to have triangle pursuit, down the line, and box fit. And you're going to say, that's it. Those numbers right there are the groups, and we rotate those guys in stations. And what we do is we keep it simple, basics, and then they execute at a high level. Those are the drills. We're going to show you those drills and everything in those drills that you're going to see executed on the kickoff coverage in the game. We don't have to scheme up and have schematics. We run with those drills, and then we execute at a high level. I put this in here because we can talk about the hidden yardage. We can talk about, hey, here's the percentage of where the team starts at when they can score. And this is based off of field goals and touchdowns. So you can talk about it, but it's good to let the young men see it. And here's the second part of that. You can do this for after a game. You can do this during the bye week. You can do this at the end of the season for your team. Right here I did this for all of FCS. But you can do it specifically for your unit so they can understand where they're at. You can do that. And then they got a bigger picture of how important it is to be able to cover down on the kickoff unit. The big picture. We are a half-field kickoff coverage team. We're going to take away half of the field. We're going to dictate where you return the ball. We're going to dictate that. You're going to say, how so? Well, we do scouting report. We do film. We send it to the special teams guys. We send it to the whole team on our scouting report. I'm blessed to have a head coach that has a strong special teams background where he's going to make sure we get everything executed at a high level on special teams. So they get a scouting report. We're going to watch that film at 7 a.m. on special teams first thing in the morning, and they're going to be ready to execute. So we're not going to kick the ball to where they set their return up. Okay, who did? We're not going to kick the ball to where they set their return up. And we're not going to kick it to their best returner. That's just not going to happen. And so we're going to force them to do what we want them to do as a kickoff unit. Here's our stats from this year. We finished 15 in FCS in the country in the kickoff coverage team. So we had 12 games. What this is opponents had 39 returns. We had 14 touchbacks, and they had, at the end of the year, total of all the teams we played, 656 yards. And it was average around 16.8 of the return. We finished 15 in the country. Obviously, we want to be better than that. We want to be in the top 10. Obviously, we want to be number 1 kickoff unit. Here's the bigger picture. Here's what we look for and how we execute. I know you see a bunch of lines up there. I know you see, okay, where's the L1, L2, R1, R2? I don't do that. I keep it simple. We go 1 through 10. 1 through 10 with the kicker, and I'll go into more details why we do it like that, because at the end of the day, it's not what I know or understand is what the young man knows and understand how they can execute on the call. If I can keep it simple and sound, that's what we're going to do. Here it is going deep right. So I know we're coaches in here. We all understand this. The reason why I put this up here is, yes, we're coaching college young men, high school young men. You assume or you think they know what it is to be on the kickoff coverage team. We assume that, and then it turns around and bites us. So we go over the rules and the techniques. We go over what we want to accomplish. Like, okay, our drill is a simple drill. It's the get-off drill, take off. We'll line up. All they're going to do is burst 10 yards. And that's just to make sure that we're hitting at the full speed where we get our best 40 time when toe meets leather from the kicker. Simple as that. Nothing more. And you might think, well, that's just a waste of time. Well, you don't want to be that guy that's jumping off sides or that's off sides when the ball's kicked, and now we got to redo it. And so the next thing is we just go over different what the kicker is expected to do for us. We want the ball placed from the 3 or the 5 yard line, either bottom or the outside of the numbers. That's what his job is every single time he kicks off. And we understand that obviously the ball gets kicked in the end zone, it's a touchback. But we do things differently on a touchback, and you're going to see that. We're expected as a kickoff unit to run through the end zone when it's a touchback. No ifs, ands, and buts. My coach is on me. He's watching to see if anybody, they don't even get that pinky toe in that end zone. They're going to have to see us for some friendly reminders on Monday or Sunday. Because everybody, when it's kicked for a touchback, needs to run through the end zone. And then we talk about a free kick, understanding that it needs to be on the 20-yard line. Like I said, these are rules. These are things that we have to go over with our guys, because I'm not leaving nothing unturned. They got to understand it. They got to understand it. It's something that we'll do at least once each week, just to let them understand where we're at. We're going to see the down the line, talking about maintaining discipline in your coverage lanes. And so you're going to be down the line, and you got to understand, if you attack butt side, you can't just keep going wide. You got to be able to restack, get back in your lane, and run down the field. So we're going to go over down the line. And we're going to always talk about having leverage on the football. Having leverage on the football. Having that proper leverage on the football when you're attacking the ball. Obviously, we want to talk about don't lose contain, going over the halo rules with those guys. This is the big one. This is a big one right here, and that's the contact zone. You already know everybody thinks every zone is an avoid zone. Nobody wants to stick their face on nobody anymore. You're in the contact zone. You got to hat and hands that dude, get off the block and make the play. Well, I was trying to dip and rip. Well, you dipped and ripped. Now you opened up a lane. Now they're gashing us. You got to be able to, at some point, you can't avoid anymore. At some point, you got to go ahead and get in that contact zone. You got to hat and hands that dude, get off the block and make the play. Keys. This is big right here. We always talk about keys. We talk about the frontline keys. We talk about the two-man keys. Then we talk about the pre-snap indicators. Like I said, we give them a scouting report. What we do is I clip out the clips, and I put it on the PowerPoint, and we send it to all the guys, and they get to see the different type of formations, what type of returns they're trying to set up, who's the main guy to look for as they're getting ready to set up the return. They're going to have one guy that's going to give it away. They're going to have that one guy or two guys that's going to give away where that return is going. So we always want to give them the heads up on the indicators. Big right here, field zone. Field zone, this is huge because we're going to talk about the acceleration zone. We want those guys hitting at that acceleration zone, onside, great stance, giving it their best 40 speed takeoff in that acceleration zone. And this is the fit. This is right at what the field would look like. this diagram was exactly what it would be. So you got your speed and read zone. I'm expecting my guys to see all that's happening. All that's happening in reading what's going on as they're running down the field full speed. Speed and read zone. The avoid zone. Got to dip, rip, grab grass, get stacked, get back in your lane. This part right here is a huge part in the avoid zone because a lot of guys, they avoid, and it's good to get it on film because they're like, I got back in my lane. I did stack. And when they look at it, they're about 5, 6, 7 yards off of their landmark in their avoid zone. So you want to be able to avoid and stack, get back in their lane. Here we go. Big right here. Contact zone. Contact zone, we want to be able to get off blocks. We want to be able to defeat the two-man and be able to make the play. I always talk about this right here. Make the tackle inside the 20-yard line. That's good. That's excellent. That's great. Anybody would take that. Make the tackle at the 15-yard line. That's superior. We're doing a great job. 10 and in, that's excellent. That's a game breaker. That's a game breaker because we already know from the previous diagram that we showed, when the offense has to start closer to the goal line, backed up towards the goal line, the harder it is for them to move the ball down the field to sustain a drive to score touchdowns or to kick field goals. This is huge. So this is what I was talking about with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. If we're going to go deep left, 1 through 7 are going to be right here. If we're going to go deep right, 1 through 7 are going to go to the right. None of the coaching technique changes. Everybody's doing the same job, so now you don't have to cross-train anybody. And you're like, okay, you just said, it don't matter. It don't matter that you just heard me say that because what? The kickoff team, the kick return team still has to execute their blocking. They still got to execute their assignment. It don't matter. We did this all year long. It don't matter that this is what, because you still got to execute. Like I said, we're doing what? We got speed. We got a whole lot of violence. We're going to play hard, and we're going to play together. So it don't matter. This is simple. Now, one knows every time if it's deep right or deep left, I'm the number one. I'm the number one. If it's deep right or deep left, I'm the number 2. None of the coaching changes. You ain't got to cross-train nobody. Everybody understands their assignment, and they execute their assignment at the highest level. Here's the big picture again. Talked about this, what the scheme is. We're going to be a half-field team. I'm going to go in more detail with these guys, talking about these cutters. Here we go, hammers. One coach, like I said before, our head coach is a big-time special teams guy. So we have coaches coaching positions within it. It's not just one guy coaching these guys up. It's going to be a coach that has each one of these guys coaching them up. So this right here with the hammers is going to be coached by a coach. He's going to coach the hammers up. If something's going wrong, that's his position group. He's coaching the hammers. I like to correlate the hammers to D-line. It might not be D-line bodies, but I'm going to have a defensive guy. So I'm going to correlate those guys with D-line because they're going in there, they're going in the trenches, going in there in the trash, and they got to be able to make a play. They got to destroy the return tunnel. They're the D-line. They're going to be coached up by a guy on our staff. Okay, hard contain, chase contain. Those are corners. Those are corners. Like I said, it's not necessarily corner bodies, but for this, when I talk about it, they're like corners on the defense. They got to have aggressive contain, but make sure that ball doesn't bounce. If the ball bounces, now it's my opportunity. That's my job to make that play. If it bounces, if I'm keeping the leverage on my inside shoulder and that ball bounces, I'm able to come around and make that tackle. The cutter. The cutter and the fitter. I gotta get to some film because I want y'all to see this cutter. Cutter's free. Cutter could be anybody at the end of the day when we scheme this thing up. He's going straight to the football. He's going straight to the football. I don't care how he gets there as long as he gets to that football to make a play. Number 1, he's going to fit off of number 2. He's going to fit off that hard contain. Those guys are coached up by a coach. He's got his eyes on them coaching those guys up. Obviously, you got your safety, kicker, and number 10 as your safeties. Going to talk about certain blocks and how to defeat those blocks. There's 3 ways that we coach up defeating the blocks. You can defeat it with speed. You can defeat it with pressure. If he's trying to block me to my right, obviously he's going to come to my left. I got to be able to attack him and then restack to his 6, which is his backside. And then obviously attack ball side. Those are the 3 ways we talk about defeating blocks. Here we go. This is a good one. I really can't wait to get so you see this. So we always talk about defeating the double team. You're always going to have a post guy. You're always going to have a pin guy. Naturally, when a guy's getting double team, he's going to see the post guy, and he thinks, I need to attack the post guy. But if you attack the post guy, all you're doing is leaving room for that pin guy to pin you. You want to attack the pin guy first because there's already a gap when he's coming over, and when you collision him, that keeps that gap there. Now you'll be able to squeeze through and make that play. You want to attack the pin guy. You want to attack this guy first. You can beat it with speed to avoid, or you can beat it with speed by splitting it, or you can beat it with attacking the pin first. Don't attack the post. When you're sitting there playing with the post, all that pin guy's going to do is knock you off. Go to him. Beat a hammer. Go to him and keep that cavity. Here's our circuits right here. And our circuits right here, this is the triangle pursuit circuit. This is the down the line circuit. And this is the box and fit. What you see in this diagram of what you're going to see in practice, we do it like this. Because, if you've been a special teams guy, you understand where your time is. So I want to show them a picture. Then I also want to make sure that they know where they're at. And then we get there so we can get going on with our drills. It pops up as I'm going to show you what we do when we go down the line. Right here where you see on the 40 is we set a coach right there in between both of them. And then the first group of guys, as you can see up there, where it comes down, is they're going to dip and rip and grab grass. And then the next guy right there is they're going to hat and hands that guy, and then they're going to be able to vice the returner. They're going to vice that guy. And then we'll do that on both sides so they can get a feel for it. And all we're doing is telling them is attack butt side. With a dip and rip, we're going to ask them to attack butt side, get back in their lane. That's what we talk about restack. Once they restack back in their lanes, then we're going to hat and hands that guy, and then we're going to be able to keep our leverage with our shoulder onto the ball carrier. Now we go over here, triangle pursuit. Took a couple reps to get this right, but the guys are going to start stacked. And when you talk about kickoff, you always talk about those guys. You always want to make sure that they do not stack color when they're running down the field. So we start this drill with them being stacked. We have 2 returners back deep. The coach is going to point to one of them. That guy goes, and now in that stacked group, they got to be able to form a triangle and fit off each other to be able to tackle the ball carrier. And once they fit off each other, it's just formed like a triangle, and then they understand. The first guy can either attack the outside leverage of the returner or the inside leverage. No matter which way that guy attacks him, you just got to be able to fit off of him. Then the next guy fits off of him. It's not a set way that you should attack it. They just got to fit off each other. When you go over here to box and fit, on the box and fit, that's the 1 and 2 on the kickoff team. That's the 1 and 2. Now those guys, the 2, he's going to fit up on the blocker. And then we're asking the 1 to either fold or stay on top where they vice. If the returner stays outside, the 2 and the 1 are going to vice each other on the tackle. If the returner decides to go inside to where the hammers are, the 1, he's just going to fold inside, reading off the 2, and make a tackle on the returner. And what we do is we rotate everybody in these circuits. We just don't say, oh, you're a 1 or a 2, so you just stay at the box and fit. Because we realized throughout the season, certain guys are in certain spots, but now they got to be able to understand the 1. We might have to put the 1 as an 8, and he's got to run the hammer. And that's huge for us. So I can go into what we do to understand that. So we have our staff meeting in the morning. But as soon as we're finished with our staff meeting, we go into special teams, but it's special teams personnel. And we'll sit there and we'll discuss. We just don't throw guys in certain spots. We don't say, oh, just put him at the 8. We want to make sure we got the right guy that fits that. If he's not a hammer guy, he doesn't need to be trying to run down the field as a hammer. And so we'll sit there with the whole staff in there, and we'll discuss who fits where, from the starter to the second string guy to the third string guy. And we'll sit there and discuss. We'll go down the line. Coach say, oh, he's a receiver, but he should be starting at the 8 because he's got some nastiness to him. We did have a guy that had some nastiness to him as a receiver. He was running down the field knocking heads off. So we do that as a staff in the beginning in the morning. But then we go from that, and it's 1:30. We'll meet again. But when we meet again at 1:30, we're going over what those drills are that we're going to do for practice. So everybody's on the same page what we're going to execute in practice. And so that's how we're sound. One thing that we do in practice and special teams is everybody has a pre-practice. Like, corners do a pre-practice, linebackers do a pre-practice, but our coach is gracious enough to let the special teams have a pre-practice, which is very helpful, and it cleans up things before we actually run the practice in the practice time. We'll do a pre-practice with that unit. So now we're pre-practicing, walking through it, so when it's time for practice, now we're cooking with grease, and we're rolling through it. We just did it in pre-practice, and now we can go ahead and execute it in practice. So we're not wasting time. We're not wasting time. So we do a pre-practice, and that goes a long way for us. And then obviously the next day, we'll go over that practice. We find those clips and go over that practice to be able to show things that went well and things that did not go well in the practices. And while the film is going up, if anybody has any questions about that, feel free to shoot some questions. All right, so this is the down the line drill. I don't have no control over it, but I'm going to talk through it. So what we're asking these young men to do is to dip and rip, grab grass, and stack back in lane, and then hat and hands the guy, and then vice, keeping the ball on your inside shoulder. So if you see 87 right here, he's what I'm looking for as we're talking about being violently dipping. And then now he's got his inside foot up. He's not standing straight up. And he's able to vice on the ball on his inside shoulder. It's a really good 13. If you see him, it's not what I'm looking for. So coaches, the coach behind them is directing which way they go. These are two young pups right here. And they violently attack with their hands, their hat and hands. I tell them to keep their face out of it. Keep your face out of it, so now when you're in that contact zone, you're able to see where the ball is getting returned to. Now we're going over here to the box and fit. Box and fit. So in the kickoff, the box and fit is where the ball is being kicked. We're asking the kicker to place the ball either deep left or deep right. So this is simulating 1 and 2. 2 is the guy that's over here boxing, and then you got number 1 that's fitting. It's getting ready to come back up. So you see 0 here. He could be a little bit more physical. And now you're forcing the returner to come outside. This is technically, if this was on the field, that returner went to the sideline. Now number 1 and the 2 are squeezing it. Now we tell the 2 to stay with his outside arm and leg free while the 1 folds. Because now if the returner decides to cut back, the 2 is still there. Now if you see him, coach is telling him he over pursued it. He took his inside shoulder and put it on his outside shoulder. Now he left that lane there. When he's coming back across like that, he has the hammers there to be able to take that. He doesn't have to come that far across. Coach is coaching him up and letting him know you didn't have to do that. Now I have a lane to cut back through. Hitting it square, and then we squeeze. It folds back inside. All right, here we go with the triangle pursuit. The coach is standing behind the 3 guys stacked. He points to one of them, and now they're doing is squeezing off that guy. All they're doing as the kickoff guys, we don't want to stack color. Right now we're stacking color. Now we got to be able to replace and fit. You see those two right there? They fit in the middle because he assumed that, oh, I'm supposed to always have the middle. That is not the case. That's not the case that you assume that you had the middle. You're fitting off of each other. Whatever that guy goes in front of you, you replace him. Good group right here. So you see number one said, I'm going to go ahead and take away his outside shoulder, make him cut back to the next two. And then the number two guy took the other shoulder. Well, now number three fits in the middle.